if you look into Amorim, I'm thinking that he looks to the field and say, oh, there's some crappy players here in Man United that definitely I don't want next season. And for me, that will be the problem. Time and the means that they will give to Ruben Amorim.
Despite the best efforts of a bloodthirsty media, Ruben Amorim requires time, patience and backing by the Manchester United hierarchy and fan base. That's the message from a man who knows him far better than the majority of us. And there's plenty more to come in this week's episode of your Theatre of Red. Ruben Amorim's Manchester United endured yet another problematic outing at Goodison Park before a Bruno Fernandes-inspired comeback earned a valuable point. The result does leave Manchester United in 15th position in the Premier League, ahead of a midweek meeting with Kieran McKenna's Ipswich under those magnificent Old Trafford lights. However, 3 positions and 13 points separate the sides, and that's before a ball is kicked in anger. We've got the English media juggernaut fixating its eyes firmly on Old Trafford, Sir Jim Radcliffe and his Ineos backroom team, and the tactics of Portuguese football's former fan favourite, Mr. Ruben Amorim. Alongside me today for a very special chat about our 40-year-old tactician is a lifelong Sporting supporter and the former brains behind the widely revered Sporting 160, a man who shares a deep respect for Manchester United, Mr. Pedro Varela. It is a pleasure to speak with you today, sir. How is everything?
I'm fine, Shaun. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very pleased to talk with you about not only Ruben Amorim, because he was our manager, and of course Man United, because I'm a huge supporter of Manchester United for quite a long time.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic to get somebody from this perspective for a conversation, because from our end, it's very easy to get convoluted with the endless reports that come out on a daily basis. There's so much sensationalism, there's so much clickbait and so much false material. I think there's so many avenues that we could begin chatting about, Pedro.
Sure.
As an avid fan of the green and white, who I can only assume is still coming to terms with life without Ruben, and embracing a third different coach of the season. How has Sporting transitioned over the last 3 months following Ruben Amorim's departure?
So it's definitely not going the way we want, although we're still in first place with the same points of Benfica because of yesterday, this last weekend game. But I don't, of course, when Ruben Amorim left Sporting, 11 games, 11 wins. But since then, we made a mistake, or the president of Sporting made a mistake choosing João Pereira, who's not prepared for that job. Definitely, it was his first time managing a first division team. But then he had time to change and to choose another one. Rui Borges came from Guimarães, Vitória Sport Club, and he was doing a very good job. But then it was the problem in this moment that we are having, and that is not related with, I'm thinking in this moment, it's not related with the management. It's all about the injured and fatigued players, because we are, in this moment, last game, it was 30 kilometers from my home. I went there and Sporting didn't have one midfielder to put in the game because they were or injured or fatigued players. We have a huge problem, I think. In my 40 years of Sporting supporter, I don't remember anything like this in this whole time. And actually, 2 of them will not return until the end of the season. And actually, one of them, Daniel Bragança, returned for a long, more than 8 months. Injured. So, and actually in the last year we had Pedro Gonçalves bought. It was supposed to return on January, a very important player because he's not only is a great player and do a lot of assists in this case to Gyökeres. He didn't return on January. and probably will return during March. So, of course, if we add Ruben Amorim, even with these injured and fatigued players, I'm assuming that we were on the verge to be champion again. And I don't know if you are aware, but Sporting does not win consecutive two championship in 70 years. So it's a huge thing for us to win this championship. And because of this whole thing, and because Benfica was very well, I think it was better than us in this transfer window in January. I think they are a little bit with an advantage for the last games, but we'll see. Both teams with the same points, and Benfica will have one more competition than us because we are now out from the Champions League. Benfica will have the Champions League, but we maintain two competitions: Taça de Portugal, our Portuguese Cup, and the League Cup and the Championship. So we'll see. It will be. It is far to be decided, but it will be an interesting one against our oldest rival.
It's a pretty difficult situation, and from a personal perspective, my wider circle of Manchester United colleagues, friends and family and supporters, it was a tremendous coup for us to be able to take a manager of that caliber from a side that was performing so well domestically and on the continent mid-season. It was unprecedented. And while from a personal perspective, Pedro, we thought it was fantastic, I've been covering continental football for years. I couldn't quite fathom how that Sporting team was going to respond to the news that their adopted son, who had come in and transformed, returned domestic silverware after such a long wait, 19 years, if I'm correct, Pedro, yes? Yeah. And then he comes in and he leaves mid-season. I could only imagine that there was so much heartbreak within the squad. They probably had such admiration for him because this is one of the defining characteristics outside of what we have seen from the very early stages, that he's quite clearly a very well-educated man. He's got a lot of charisma, very good communication skills.
Yeah,
and
the best of, sorry to interrupt. For me, the best since I'm a Sporting fan. I never saw, and actually, just to give you a glimpse of what it means for us, the way that he's communicating with all the supporters, everyone starts seeing the press conference of Ruben Amorim previewing the game and after the game, but mostly previewing the game. And that was simply an amazing thing to us to following this press conference, understanding some of the problems, understanding how Sporting team will play against the different opponent teams. So it was an amazing, from that perspective, I think it was the best that we had here for many years.
I can totally appreciate that because I watched from afar and it was very difficult not to admire this guy. Yeah. Also as well from a personal perspective, seeing the transition that was happening in Manchester City, we were looking at that this was going to be Pep Guardiola's eventual replacement. Yeah. Everything seemed to be pointing in that particular direction. It was such a frightening perspective because this is a guy who was only 39 years of age. Yeah. And we're looking at the potential ramifications of this scintillating brand of attacking football that has dominated Portuguese football unlike anything we've ever seen. And then obviously in one of his final hurrahs as a Sporting coach to dismantle Pep Guardiola in the Champions League was a sight to behold. And then you look in contrast, and he's now setting about tackling the definition of a poison chalice in Manchester following the departure of Erik ten Hag and the temporary control of Ruud van Nistelrooy. However, the biggest standing point that came out after he saw off, at the time it was Shaun Dyche's Everton, by 4-0. Instead of coming out and embracing the scoreline and being joyous, he advised that the storm was going to come and that the team would have difficult moments and we will be found out in some games. The English press immediately jumped on this and sought about it as negativity, when in reality, this was a very intelligent coach foreseeing what was going to happen. And what has transpired since? We've seen some memorable performances against Manchester City, Arsenal and Liverpool, but we've also then seen underwhelming showings against the would-be lesser opposition en route to a 15th place standing in the Premier League. This is something that we have seen on a perennial basis because we'll say you could go back as far as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Yeah. We were very good at playing attractive counter-attacking football against the sides that wanted to play a high-pressing football. And then it would be very difficult for us in struggling to break down, we'll say, low blocks, and those would be lesser teams. Given the expectation for success that he has installed in Portugal, did you and your sporting contingent anticipate such struggles during his transition after 3 months?
So much struggles? I don't think so. But look, Amorim is a very pragmatic manager, and in a way, and I already told you when you interviewed me, in a way, it's like when he arrived to Sporting, coming from Braga, and ended up in fourth place in Portuguese league. Of course, it's a huge difference to be fourth here in Portugal because, as you know, Portuguese league is almost 3 clubs and the rest. And is very different from the Premier League. But in the beginning, the first 9-10 games in that season where we ended up in fourth place, it wasn't his team. And Amorim started talking about that. Okay, we need to win some games. We need to put the team playing football and very attractive football and start winning, of course, games. But there's an important thing for me. It's he needs to build his team. He needs time. And in the following year, here in Portugal, he starts asking for the players to the board and start building his team, building the tactics, the famous 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. It depends on the way that we attack or defend, but typically the main one, it was 3-4-3, and there's a huge difference between at certain point we had time to rebuild this. Okay, it was fourth place, but we have time to do this because normally in the last years we had crappy managers. In the last 40 years we won three Portuguese championships. So let him have some opportunity with his team, with his time, with his tactics. And the problem is the same. Of course, it's a more competitive championship, but look, it will need time. You look into the Man United team, there was some times that when I'm seeing the Man United games, I'm looking and okay, some of these guys playing this like they are playing some of the games, they don't fit even in Sporting. So, and it cannot be because it is $1 billion revenue team against 200 million or 300 million. So I think time here, it will be very important, not only to choose. First of all, I'm not a huge fan of Onana, so probably need to choose another goalkeeper. You need to choose defensive players. I'm thinking that probably the most important thing that you will need for next season, it's to build a strong defense and very, very capable to see, okay, I have the guys in back that can protect my goal scorer, and then from then I will start building my team. Of course, you have some of amazing players, Bruno Fernandes carrying the team in his shoulders, but I'm thinking that now that Ugarte can be the player that was in Sporting. And if he starts building his team, and I don't think I know that normally the transfers in England will be much more higher than typically the international transfers, but I don't think that we'll need to spend too much. I know that in this moment, Man United has a lot of problems. Yesterday, a new plan for 200 people maybe getting out of the club. You have the financial fair play. So the problem for me is this board willing to give Ruben Amorim time to build his team, to build the player, to get the players that he wants in order to build the ones that, if you're looking into Sporting, it was almost the same. You need to set up his tactics. He needs to trust the players that he have in the field. And normally, and I'm looking to what, and if you looking to Amorim, I'm thinking that you looks to the field and say, oh, there's some crappy players here in Man United that definitely I don't want next season. And for me, that will be the problem: time and the means that they will give to Ruben Amorim.
You mentioned the board, and this is something that I really want to elaborate on, because there's this show in England. It's called The Overlap, and you've seen this, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
And Jamie Carragher has suggested that Manchester United's hierarchy must be thinking about the possibility that maybe they have moved too quickly to bring Amorim to Manchester United. He's stating this because he feels that Amorim, at 40, is far from the expected article in the Premier League at this stage of his managerial journey, and that factually he's coming up against better managers in England and essentially being exposed because of a lack of experience. Now, this has come to fruition because he feels that the results and the performances have been so bad that doubt will inevitably accompany the present situation, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his Ineos team will be second-guessing themselves. As a lifelong Sporting fan, who also has the massive admiration for Manchester United in the Premier League, as you do you think that Ruben made the jump too soon? Or, as expected, has the English media simply endorsed a sense of sensationalism in refusing to accept the mitigating factors surrounding the situation and, as you said, the necessary requirement for him to start bringing in his own players to build his team?
Yeah, it's the question the jump, and if it's too soon. Even here in Portugal, we talk about that. First of all, Sporting need to change. One of the things that it was our lesson. So the first lesson is that the contracts with coach need to change so that we don't lose a coach during the season. For me, that's the major lesson for Sporting fan regarding Ruben Amorim. Look, we can see in a two way. Typically, Ruben said that the train pass and he needs to enter in the train because this train will not pass again. It was the idea behind the jump into Man United train. Of course, there was money, and normally I say, okay, he already earned too much, but going to Man United is even he can go there and prepare his life and his kids' lives for a long time. So there was the issue of money. And I think it's normal for everyone, for a professional in any career. But the question about too soon, I don't think it's too soon, because the guy made an amazing job here in Portugal. All the data that you have access, even it's a Portuguese league, and Portuguese league is not so big league, but typically the teams, more Benfica and Porto in last years, you go to the European Cups and you go to the international match, you see that we can have very good performance against bigger teams. But Ruben Amorim made an amazing career here in Sporting. So the next potential step, it was going to a huge team. And look, Shaun, if Man United knocks on your door, who's going to say no to Man United? And I know we are talking about Man United, but if it was Man City or even Liverpool, to talk about one of the biggest rivals of Man United, who's going to say no to some of not only the biggest teams in the world, and of course the biggest championship all over Europe? And when we talk about Europe, of course, in football, we are talking about the world. So I don't think it's too soon. He's 39. He made very important results here in Sporting. He's capable, and I truly believe that he's capable of doing a good job. But once again, he needs time. He needs to build his team, and after, let's see next year when he starts, and hopefully starts the next season with the players that he chooses. Then we should start evaluating if is the good is the manager that Man United needs. I know that one question typically in the last games for the whole Man United sports is all about, okay, we know that this is not the best team, but we should made better results, and we should made better better performance in the field. I tend to agree with that, but at the same time, that when this team, and actually, I don't know, 12 years ago, it was in 2022, so we are in Portugal Sporting 2012 in 22, no, sorry, 12 years ago. Yeah, 12 years ago, we had interesting players, not the amazing team, but we're in a spiral of losing streak, and we were in almost 3 places of the relegation zone, and I think it's something like this that is happened to Man United. So they are not getting out of this problematic performance that they are having. But once again, I think Ruben Amorim, with time, with the players, and of course good players, because he needs to choose what he wants to build. And so I don't think it's too soon. He made a good result. He made amazing results here in Sporting. Then I'm assuming that the next potential step is going to the big leagues, and the big leagues are England. If you look into the way that he's managing his teams, and I don't think Spain, potentially no. Even in Germany, I don't think so. French, not too much. So I think it was the only. And actually, he made conversations with Liverpool. He made conversation with West Ham. So in his mindset, England was the next step, the next challenge. So I don't think it's too soon. I know that it was a problem for him because of the last years of Man United, and so we need to have some balance here. Is it always it's only a problem of the manager, or it's a problem of the board, of the administration, the way that the club is being administrated? Because yesterday, I think it was Barada said that, okay, we need to get the financial results to be possible. And I think in the last, 10 years, Man United was not so trying to be a very good team in the field, but it was more about the financial results and what it was capable in order to sell some part of like the supporters wanted. So there's 2 big issues here in this story. Ruben Amorim, and to prove to be the manager that Man United need, and at the same time, if the board is capable of giving him the players and everything that he needs to build his team.
In response, just to clarify,
Sure.
I don't agree with what Jimmy Carragher said. I don't think it was too soon. I think it was a perfect move at a really surprising time, as I've made mention to, because to gather and to capture him mid-season is a massive coup, and that is the finest notch on Sir Jim Ratcliffe's belt since he's come to Manchester United, because he has made plenty of mistakes since he's arrived, but being able to acquire a young, talented coach who was being touted as the replacement for Pep Guardiola, that's an amazing accomplishment. So no, I share your sentiment. I do not in any way, shape or form agree with what Carragher is saying. When it comes down to finances, I mean, you and I could sit here and I could speak to you for 60 minutes straight, easy, about the mismanagement, the incompetence, and the sheer lack of desire that this idle ownership has had on this football club. It has led down to, I suppose, a focus, as you've said, on commercial over actual results in the field, and that has led to where we are today. When you're assessing his squad, it's truly evident that many are just simply not cut out for the expected requirements of playing in the melting pot that is Old Trafford. People find it ironic when players like Anthony can depart for La Liga and set the world on fire. But truthfully, this simply magnifies the nature of the beast that Amorim is dealing with. The Premier League is without question the most competitive division in the world. The nature of financial damage caused by the Glazers has played its part in a quiet January window. But we did see the arrival of Aidan Heaven, who's a fantastic prospect from Arsenal, more notably Patrick Dorgu. Now, in Dorgu, fans are witnessing an athletic footballer We see bundles of pace, we see strength, we see intense activity in either side of the transition. He's also featured on the right in his very first game, which surprised a lot of people because I suppose Manchester United as a fan base thought we finally have a left back who is fit. And then in the very first game, he's deployed on the right. Now, as I drew mentioned to previously, I have covered continental football for quite some time. So I know it's not the most bizarre thing in the world that Amorim will play a right-footed defensive player on the left and a left-footed on the right because he likes an inverted action from his players alongside marauding runs. But in your eyes, does Patrick Dorgu represent the type of signing that you would expect for this coaching team in general, regardless of the team and the league that they're in?
It could be. It is a player that could fit in typical Amorim's teams. I'm not. I don't. I think it could fit in that teams. Maybe at a certain point it was necessary to do something in this transfer window at the same time because he needs to improve the quality of the team. But once again, I don't think that's just one change or a small change. I think that particular it will be more. It will be more, not more use, but it will make more use of that kind of player when Amorim will be able to build his squad. And let me just say one thing because of what you're saying about if it was a jump that Amorim needed to do or if it was too soon. So there was one thing that when Amorim was signed, the English press made a big fuss about his signing, and it was as if the United team was a very good team. It is an amazing club team, of course, but it wasn't a very good team. And when he got there, he faced face to face with reality, and for me that was for me that's the doubt that even Amorim, I don't know if he was thinking, okay, I know they are not playing well, but maybe I can change something. And I truly believe that he was thinking that I can change. And in the beginning, there were some results, but then he faced the reality. And I don't know if it's only about the problem of Ruben Amorim and if there's some problem regarding some players that are not playing what they can play. And the other thing that just to connect with is the amount of money that Man United spent in the last years and with Erik ten Hag. I'm just finishing reading the Ian Graham's book, the How to Win the Premier League, and actually yesterday I was listening because I'm using audiobook. I'm not reading, I'm listening. But one of the chapters is regarding the amount of money that the clubs spent and Liverpool at a certain point it was even close to the money that Man United spent. And actually when I answered to some of your questions that we made a couple of weeks ago, it's impressive to see that Erik ten Hag spent almost 400 million. And now for me is the problem to see if Man United can spend some money, and I don't know how much money they will spend in order for Ruben Amorim to build this team. And look, I know that there's a lot of Man United supporters in this moment. They will say, okay, I don't know if was the right choice. I don't know if he's going to do. Portuguese league is very different from the Premier League. Premier League is arguably the most competitive league in the world. There's no doubt about that. But look, if you don't give time, if you don't give the main the players to them, and if you don't expect in the time that he need to provide a better team, I don't think it's fair to say he's not the coach that we need. And definitely, I don't think that this board want to deal with another resignation because in the last, I don't know, last five or six managers, Man United had a lot of problems. So it's difficult, and if and it's hard to understand and to know who's going to be right. Hopefully, and I hope that Ruben Amorim has a huge success in Man United. But it's hard. It's hard to know what's going to happen in the couple of months. I think now is focus on. We need results. We need to not be in the 15th place of the table. We need results. I think it will put some effort in the Europa League, because it can, in the end, it could be very interesting. I know that every manager wants, if can win something, it will be a huge boost in his confidence. But in this moment, I'm thinking that he wants results. He wants to win games, even if it's 1-0, and need to put the team playing differently, because in this moment is not what is happening.
You've touched on something with Erik ten Hag, because Erik ten Hag spent an awful lot of money, particularly in the summer just gone.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most damning points of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his team, because a decision was made to keep Erik ten Hag, to then support him with the available finances that were there, and then obviously cut ties with him several months later, increasing the amount of compensation that was paid and putting us further into difficulties with the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules. He is worth billions. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is the club has been making a loss year on year. When we assess future windows, so much depends on outgoings and the potential revenue generated from players' sales. That profit and sustainability rules and the financial fair play, they are dictating stringent financial controls for all football clubs. And we've got 2 decades of Glazer management, which has returned annual losses, as I said, for several consecutive years. Now, that said, we are expecting several outgoings in the summer, with everyone from Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Anthony, Casemiro. These guys all command astronomical salaries as well.
Yeah.
Now in Sporting, there are several players that are naturally going to be linked with the move to Manchester United, namely the likes of Giovanni Quenda. Do you see much movement between the clubs in the summer? And who do you feel that Amorim will prioritise to aid with his Manchester rebuild from that squad?
If Amorim could choose one player to go to Man United, probably Pedro Gonçalves. It was because it's a very complete player. Scores goals, he do a lot of assists. He's a very clever player, but because he's injured for months, I don't know if it will be a very good time to do this change. Of course, everyone is talking about Gyökeres. Yeah, Gyökeres, it's that guy that you already have there in British football, then came to Portugal. He's an amazing player, and I think it will fit there. And Kenda is the typical winger guy that can take the ball and do whatever he wants. It's only 18 years, so. Looking into these players, I'm thinking between Pedro Gonçalves, Gyökeres, and Kenda. I think they are the 3 main ones that potential be part of thinking of Ruben Amorim. But and look, Sporting will need to sell something. Definitely, it will happen because we are not Man United. We struggle in finance. In the last years we have been very, very sustainable team. So, of course, we need typically to sell a strong player in the summer, and I'm assuming that the potential player that could leave is Gyökeres. But if I was Amorim, probably Pedro Gonçalves, it was the main one. And Pedro Gonçalves with Ugarte and Bruno Fernandes, it will be an impressive midfield with a lot of options, different tactics and set up in the different squads. But I'm assuming too that I'll start our conversation telling about that in the back. he will need definitely a central defender. I know that he's trying to do something with Maguire, like he did here in Portugal with Coates. And Coates was a player that ups and downs, and with Ruben Amorim it was a mandatory player to in all the games, not only in terms in defensive playing, and at the same time in some attacking, because it was high and sometimes he scored a lot of goals, and actually Maguire did that in the FA Cup. But from Sporting, I'm assuming only one. It potentially could be Pedro Gonçalves, Gyökeres or Kenda. I don't think that will take anyone. But then I think the main concerns for him, it will be the defense. In my opinion, and it's not Ruben Amorim, of course, I don't like Onana. I'm thinking that Onana is not worth the 50 million that Man United pay for him. It's good in some balls that goes in this figure, but it goes directly to him. But there's a lot of problems with him. And so some guy, he will need the goalkeeper, defenders, some wingers, some guys in the midfield, and of course for the tactics that Amorim typically, he will need a guy that score goals. And goals, last year, of course, we had Gyökeres, and it was an impressive goal scorer. But in the 2 years before, when we won the first championship with Amorim, it takes some time because it takes some time to get. But we get Paulinho, and with another one, we scored a lot of goals with 2 or 3 players, because these teams definitely will need guys that score goals. And if you look into Man United in this moment, you don't have these guys. I don't know if Højlund it will be, and Rashford it was loaned, and I'm assuming that Rashford, if continue with this thing, it will be out with Amorim, because Amorim doesn't like this type of players. And as I told you, what he did to Fatau, that is now in the Premier League. And so he could take some of the players here, but there's a huge difference. Amorim Sporting look to the market in a different way that Man United. If Man United give him some money, he can look for different kind of players and different kind of markets. But I'm assuming this kind of players that he will looking for.
Well, you see, the thing is, given the financial predicament that this football club is in, he may very well have to revisit his transfer scenario and his wheeling and dealing that he did in Sporting. I am curious about one thing based on what you've just said. We had begun to see more or less his favoured personnel before we started encountering our own injuries and illnesses, and that created a stranglehold on his squad. But from what you have seen throughout his time in Portugal and the brief few months in England, how many of the existing squad do you feel are actually capable of fulfilling the requirements of this intricate philosophy in his 3-4-3 system?
The Man United squad, the guys that we have in this moment, what could be the guys that will continue? Yeah. For me, as I said, the if you look into the central defense, you look into Lisandro Martinez or Matias de Ligt or Maguire, or even, I don't know, Johnny Evans. And if he had money and if he can rebuild, I think the only one that would fit in the team would be probably, I don't know, maybe Lisandro Martinez.
What about Lenny Yoro?
Yoro and maybe Lisandro Martinez and Yoro, because if he can, the lead, Maguire, Lindelof, Evans, and I'm looking into there's a lot of players here. I don't think they will fit in the next. It will fit because probably the financial problems that Man United have, he will need to maintain them. Then. Definitely Ugarte, of course, and Bruno Fernandes. There's no doubt about that. Diogo Dalot, maybe because I don't know. I have mixed feelings regarding Diogo Dalot. Luke Shaw injured, but I'm assuming that will continue. And then definitely Eriksen. I don't think Eriksen will continue, or it's not a player to what Amorim wants to. Of course, Diallo fits very well in the way that the team needs for this to play in the wings. But and then in front, Ireland and Xerxes. I'm thinking that, and look, when I'm looking into the money that Man United spends on Ireland and Xerxes, I'm thinking, okay, Amorim can find different players for this team. So it will be a very difficult task to rebuild and to get a squad that I'm not even asked for Ruben Amorim next year to, of course, to win the championship, because it's very difficult, but to play and to maintain and to be a strong team in Old Trafford as it was in past years. And so there's a lot of players that we will need to change, or if it's not possible. So this is the feeling that, and it's not only me, it's me and a lot of Portuguese supporters of different clubs. And when we see Man United, and because in X or in Twitter, I talk with a lot of football fans when we are seeing Man United games, you look into this squad and this is not a good squad. And if he can clean, he will clean this squad. Definitely.
So, in a nutshell, we're looking at about maybe 3-4 players have the ability to be able to lie in there. Pedro, I'm going to ask you one final thing.
Yeah.
With the visit of Kieran McKenna's Ipswich to Old Trafford on Wednesday evening, United can climb to the withering heights of 13th, pending results elsewhere. Now, European qualification all but relies on cup success in either the FA Cup or the Europa League, and that will obviously pend Europa League or Champions League qualification.
Yeah.
Given what you have seen thus far, and taking the nature of injuries to Lisandro Martinez, Ahmad and Kobbie Mainoo into account, alongside long-term absentees, like you've said, with Luke Shaw, Mason Mount, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but how do you envisage the remainder of the season playing out for Manchester United in the current situation that we are in?
Yeah, it's that decision that, and I think is thinking on that, because in the first year in Portugal, I don't know if you remember, but Sporting lost in the when we were champions for the first time with Ruben Amorim, we lost with last cleans for the European competitions, and it was the best thing for us. It will be an important decision to Ruben Amorim to have, because injury, the squad is not too good. So you have in the next 4 or 5 games, it's FA Cup, European competitions, and Premier League. I'm assuming that the main goal is to get out Man United from the spots near the relegation zone. So it will be his focus. It will be the Premier League. But at the same time, FA Cup, it's a huge, an important trophy. So maybe if you can prioritize Championship, FA Cup, and European League, if anything comes from there, it will be nice. But I don't think in this moment the European competitions, it could be interesting, because okay, if he wins, he can go to the Champions League. But look, it's a very high bet on that. So for Man United to win the Europa League, who knows? But if he can prioritize, of course, the Premier League, getting out from near the relegation zone, then the FA Cup, because of the importance that trophy have in the football and in the history of the competitions in England, and maybe getting into the European with with a B squad mixed team, because you have injured players now too. You are experienced that too. So, but for me, the focus must be on the Premier League, of course, and that's the focus. Playing well, getting results in the Premier League, getting out of this relegation zone or near the relegation zone, and then if something come up from the other competitions, it will be nice. Because if you look into the competitions in 14 days, you will have 3 or 4 games in 3 different competitions. So it's not easy. And I think the priority must be the Premier League.
I kind of viewed this season almost like it was going to be a 7-month pre-season for Ruben Amorim when he arrived mid-season. But the one thing that has to be taken into consideration, while it is obviously imperative to avoid relegation, and I don't even want to discuss that word.
Sure.
But ultimately, the financial ramifications for Manchester United to not feature in Europe is absolutely huge when we consider the necessity for signings, whether they're big, small, whether they're expensive, whether they're shrewd. We need money to be able to achieve that. And the only way that can be obtained is through
to win.
Is through participation in European competitions, because supporters are already shocked with the level of cost-cutting measures that are happening in the football club. And if you reach out and you get to a situation where there's no European football all of a sudden, then I think there's going to be an awful lot of people very shocked at what else can happen.
There are 7 games until you can potentially win the European League. And because if it was, next week we're going to play in the semifinals of European League, but no, there's a potential 7 games. 6 more the final. So it's too far, and if you look into the past results of Man United, you see, betting on winning the European League. I understand, of course, the financial, and of course, if you win the European League, you go directly Europa League, you go directly to the Champions League. And it will be amazing because you could spend a little bit more, and it was very different preparing the next season. But at the same time, it's you need to get out of this cycle that Man United is, with these not only awful results, and at the same time there's no different kinds of performance even in the same game, because you look into the last game in Everton, of course, the second half. It was very interesting, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, and then that it could be for both sides. But I think the priority, it will be the Premier League, even if that represents being out of the European next year. But at the same time, it could be interesting in a way that you can focus on with a different team, focus on the internal competitions and trying to regain the spot that Man United deserves.
Oh, Pedro, if only it was that simple.
Yeah,
my man, it was absolutely fantastic to share some time with you this evening.
Thank you.
If any of our listeners wish to get in touch with you, what is the best way that they can do so?
It's on Twitter, although my Twitter name is difficult because it's a Portuguese one. But it's on Twitter. I don't know. You can put it in your. Maybe they can ask you, because my handle is very Portuguese name. It's Bancada de Leão. It's Lions stand. But it's the best way to reach me, because I'm always open to discuss in X platforms or Twitter platforms, whatever you want to call.
I will make sure that is put everywhere across every single platform that this goes out, and we'll make sure that anybody listening who would maybe like to further conversation with you or about Portuguese football has the ability to do so. As always, if you are still here, kindly subscribe and leave a review wherever you are listening. Each one of those does go a long way towards bolstering our growing footprint. Be sure and keep up to date with all of our daily content on the official Theatre of Red website, and follow us on all socials at theatre_of_red. Thank you once more for lending me your ear, and I will catch you all next week off the back of what we can only hope will be an improved showing against the Tractor Boys under Old Trafford lights. I'll speak to you all then.